Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Levincia Wonders going up against the Cinnabar Blazes, and as they pull out their starting hands from the fully charged and Flamathon decks, let's have a look at this tale of the tape between these two sides, who are both currently sitting just outside of a top 5 position as they both want to get into victory road. So a win here will do massive work to try and get themselves into one of those crucial positions. But with that said, let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win this matchup. Will it be the lightning decks? Will it be the fire decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And having flipped heads, going first, as we said, will be that Flamathon deck as they move that Paldean Tauros into the active spot. It is the Rotom in the active spot from that fully charged deck of the Levincia Wonders, but both only having one basic Pokemon each. They did not have many options. However, it is the Houndour being pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes, and they are going to play that Professor's Research, but they've already got a Houndoom in hand. They get the Rapidash, they get a Ponyta as well. This is a fantastic start in hand now for the Cinnabar Blazes. They've got that Rocky Helmet and a second Professor's Research here that they can utilize on the next turn as they have a look at that Rotom, who does capitalize on the opposing Pokemon having a tool attached to them. So this may make them reluctant to attach that tool to the Tauros. They need to weigh up the options with the Rocky Helmet doing 20 return damage, but that Assault Laser does an extra 30. They are going to go with the Rocky Helmet though. They do want to return that damage onto the Rotom as they send it over to the Levincia Wonders. They pull their own Professor's Research, but they've also got the Pokeball, which they are going to play first, so they guaranteed a basic Pokemon being the Magnemite, and we can see they've got the Magnezone in hand but no Magneton yet, and they've got that Giant Cape and Electrode. With their Professor's Research, they get the second Magnezone. They also get a Voltorb, which is fantastic for that Electrode. They are going to set out that Magnemite onto the bench along with that Voltorb as well. Now they just need to think about whether or not they want to go on the offensive with this Rotom. They do attach the Giant Cape that will offset that initial Rocky Helmet damage if they do go on the offensive, and that looks like that exactly what they're going to do. 50 damage with this Assault Laser onto the Paldean Tauros, who does require 3 energy to get that Blaze Tackle online. And it is the Houndoom, that second one being pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes as they play their second Professor's Research. They get the second Rapidash, they get a Giant Cape here as well. And they are going to start setting up that Houndour, who is now a Houndoom. That Houndoom having that corner that can cause the active opposing Pokemon to be unable to retreat, but they send it back over to the Levincia Wonders, who also get their second Professor's Research, so they play that immediately, getting 2 cards, the Magneton and the second Rotom out of their deck. Both these sides getting exactly what they need for these starting turns in game 1 of this best of 3 series. And as we always say, it is going to include that third game regardless of the outcome of the first 2 matches, because it still counts toward the leaderboard. Once again, the Rotom doing another 50 damage to the Tauros. It only has 10 health remaining as the second Ponyta has been pulled for the Blazes. They immediately move that onto the bench. They get an energy on to one of those Ponytas and now evolving it into the Rapidash, but they still have nothing that can do damage, so they send it back over to the Levincia Wonders, who pull their own Rocky Helmet. Very similar hands being pulled for these teams, both getting their Professor's Research, both getting tools out of their decks as the Electrodes online, and so is the Magnezone. Now the Magnezone does require 3 energy and it's already got 2 on it, and they're going to move that second Rotom onto the bench with that Rocky Helmet going onto the Magnezone as well. The Electrode does require 2 energy, but this Assault Laser is finally going to take this Tauros off the board, but not before that Rocky Helmet does another 20 damage to this Rotom, leaving it with only 30 health. 60 damage from that Rocky Helmet on the Tauros overall. Now the Blazers thinking about how they want to approach this. They opt to move the Ponyta into the active spot. They do just pull the Withdrawal, and they move this Genetic Apex. No, they don't. They're really thinking about it here. They're taking their time. They may want to use one of the others. They're weighing up their options. They're going to play the X-Speed instead, so they're going to retreat this Ponyta. It is not the one that they wanted. They're going to go with their Rapidash that does require a second energy for that Rising Lunge. It can do upwards of 100 damage if they flip ahead, but it is guaranteed to do 40 damage. They move the Giant Cape onto the Rapidash as well, so it's now got 120 health. It can outlast a hit from that Magnezone, but they have the coin flip, they get the tails, but that is irrelevant at the moment. It is guaranteed to take out this Rotom. You have to think though we are going to see that Magnezone in the active spot very soon as the Blazers take their first point for this game. It is 1 point each. And the Wonders thinking about how they want to approach this. Instead, they're going with the Rotom again, knowing that an Assault Laser can do that additional damage. They also pull their Iono, and it does cause you to shuffle your hand as well as your opponent back into their hand, but they've only would get one card back, so they are just going on the offensive with this Assault Laser. 50 damage onto the Rapidash. This Rapidash, though, can take the Rotom immediately off the board with a successful heads in that coin flip as the Paldean Taurus that was just pulled for the Blazers is moved on to the bench. It gets its first energy here as well as the Rising Lunge. They need the heads and they get it. They are going to wipe this Rotom off the board, and the Cinnabar Blazes with this Flameathon deck have just taken the lead. They only need one more point to take game one over the Levincia Wonders. Now both these sides have won one game and lost one game this season. As we see the Magnezone enter that active spot, it is going to get its third required energy. This Thunder Blast, though, 110 damage. It is immediately about to level the playing field with the Cinnabar Blazes. The next point will win game one, giving them the advantage going into game two. And the Blazers now really need to think about how they want to approach this, because they have no Pokemon on the bench that can outlast a hit from this Magnezone either. And they're opting to go with the Houndoom. They do pull their own Iono as well. Again, two very similar decks between these two sides. The Houndoom can do 60 damage, and they play the Iono, seeing if they can get something out of this deck. They do move their second Houndoom back into the deck, and they get the Houndoom back. Whereas for the Wonders, they get a Magneton and an X-Speed, 60 damage onto the Magnezone with that corner, so the Magnezone won't be able to retreat. The Rocky Helmet doing the 20 damage to the Houndoom, but I don't think the Levincia Wonders are too worried about that. They just want to get this energy onto the Magnezone, and with this Thunder Blast, this fully charged deck is going to take game one for the Wonders over the Cinnabar Blazes. But with a quick board refresh, we are about to go into game two in this best of three series. The Wonders trying to take it in 2 games, and they will be going first. The deck that they're going to start out with is going to be that Fuego Ironworks deck, and they've got the Pachirisu in hand. They've got a Luxio, as well as they are going up against this Fire Spit Island deck, who move their Heatran into the active spot. It is the Pachirisu up against the Heatran to start this game off, but it's an Electabuzz being pulled for the Levincia Wonders. We could potentially see a clash between a Magmortar and an Electivire here. As that Shinx is pulled thanks to the Pokeball, the Professor's Research follow-up, they are going to get the Electivire plus the second Pachirisu. Another good hand here for the Levincia Wonders to start off game 2. They move the Electabuzz onto the bench along with that Shinx, a little bit more tentatively so, but they do decide that that is the play they want. They've got this Volkner as well that can attach 2 Lightning Energies from the discard pile. Now currently the Wonders have no discarded energies. As they send it over to the Blazers, they pull their second Pokeball, already having one in hand. They've also got those 2 Pokemon communication that they can capitalize on. They get that Stoke Magma out of their deck, and they are going to immediately play the second Pokeball as well. And they get the Flare Magma as well, and they are going to move the Stoke Magma. They think about it, they are deciding which one actually they want to use, and it is going to be the Flare Magma that they move on to the bench as they get their first energy onto the Heatran, who does do more damage if it has any damage on it itself. If it's at full strength, it does 40 damage. Any damage on it, it does 80. However, the Wonders are going to get that Electivire on the line first, getting a first energy onto it, not getting an energy onto the Pachirisu. This guarantees that the Pachirisu will at least outlast one turn from the Heatran. As it comes back over to the Blazers, they pull their Vulpix, and if you're wondering why they have cards from the A1 sets, the Blazers did not have enough Fire-type Pokemon across the A2 sets to fill out their roster, so they were permitted to go back and draft earlier cards. As that Raging Mad Strike does 40 damage to the Pachirisu, the Wonders pull their Iono. They could potentially use this to see if they can get a Luxray out of their deck, but they do get the second energy here onto the Electivire, and here it is. They are playing the Iono. So all these it's both these hands being shuffled. It is the Rocky Helmet, the Electivires, and the Luxray being pulled for the Wonders, the Magmortar, the Magma, the Vulpix, Giant Cape, and Professor's Research for the Blazes. But that Luxray, who has a 0 retreat cost, is now online. And again, they've got that Rocky Helmet, but they may not want to put that onto the Pachirisu just yet, because they still don't want that damage on the Heatran to make it even more powerful. So they need to take their time with this decision. And interestingly, they are going to put the Rocky Helmet onto the Luxray. They may be thinking turns ahead here, because they know that this Heatran can take the Pachirisu off the board as the Blazers pull their own Rocky Helmet. Now, looking through their hand, they've still got that Professor's Research that will give them more options as they think about playing the Magmortar, but instead they're going to go with the Research first, and they get a Pokemon Communication. They get both of them as well, so they can start using those to look for other Pokemon in their decks. They just have to put one of the Pokemon cards in their hand back into that deck that will be switched out. They go with the Vulpix as well, and they get the Ninetales. I don't think that's what they were hoping for. So they're going to play that second Pokemon Communication. Surely they're going to use the Ninetales if they are looking for that second Magmortar potentially, or a second Heatran. And they get the Vulpix back, so those Pokemon Communications were practically wasted, as they're going to get a first energy onto the Magma. They do have that Smoke Bomb Magmortar in hand. It does require 3 energy though to go on the offensive. They're thinking about how they want to approach this. Do they want to move another Pokemon onto the bench, or do they just want to go on the offensive with the Heatran? They almost go to end their turn, but first they are going to go for that Raging Mad Strike, and they will take the first point here in Game 2. And now the Wonders moving the Luxray, who has 0 energy on it at the moment, into that active spot. As they pull their Giant Cape, they immediately move that onto the Electivire. Now the Electivire only requires 2 lightning energy, but if it has 4, it does an additional 80 damage. It will normally only do 40, but that additional 80 is enough to take out the Heatran. As the Blazers pull their second Vulpix, I'm sure they're wishing they had that Ninetales right about now, as they move their Rocky Helmet onto the Heatran as well, who can go on the offensive. Still having taken 0 damage, they move the Giant Cape as well onto the Magma. And we are very close to seeing the Magmortar Electivire collision here. That Raging Mad Strike still only doing 40 damage and not any damage on Heatran to make it do 80. It gets the recoil though, so finally Heatran has taken damage in this match. But with that said, the Wonders pulling their Luxio, they get a 4th energy onto the Electivire, and the Luxray, 0 retreat cost as we mentioned earlier. So this Electivire moves in for free. They move the second Electivires onto the bench, and this exciting voltage, 120 damage, wipes this Heatran off the board, who could never capitalize on being damaged. And they do level the playing field once again to 1 point each between these two sides. But here the Blazers do move their Magma into the active spot. They pull their Dawn, who can move an energy from a bench Pokemon to the active Pokemon. They move the Magma and the Vulpix onto the bench, and here is the Magmortar as well with that Smoke Bomb. It does 70 damage, so it's not enough to take out the Electivire, but it's got 140 health. It can outlast a hit from the Electivire. There's 70 damage being done, but it also may be able to avoid taking damage from the Electivire. It will come down to a coin flip. If Electivire flips a Tails, it will not do any damage to the Magmortar. They get a first energy though onto the Luxray. Electivire though can get 120 damage. It won't be able to outlast the Magmortar, but it can get a great deal of damage, and here it is, exciting voltage, 120 thanks to that head flip. Magmortar only has 20 health remaining, but it's the Cyrus being pulled for the Blazers as well. They could actually drag that Luxray onto the active spot, but with that Rocky Helmet, it would also take Magmortar out of this match. And the Blazers thinking about whether or not they want to set up the Vulpix or the Magma. The Magma has the Stoke, the Vulpix has the Tail Whip. Sorry, I said Smoke. I think I said Smoke. I meant Stoke. But it is the Smoke Bomb from the Magmortar that is going to wipe this Electivire off the board. Magmortar coming out on top in the 2. As the Blazers take their second point, they only require 1 more. Luxray moving into the active spot. It still requires 2 more energy, but that is okay because the Volkner is in hand. They can get 2 energy from the discard pile onto the Luxray. They still have an energy in the energy zone as well, but with that said, Luxray does do 120 damage, but it has to discard all energy on it, and it can do this damage to anybody on the opposing side. Luxray has an option here with this Bolt. What a fantastic name that is for a move. And they go for the benched Magma, taking that off the board, leveling the playing field. This leaves Magmortar free to do 70 damage to this Luxray, but it will get the recoil damage. And the Blazers have just pulled their second Magmortar, but that is useless here now. Now the Blazers can give up a point here if they go for the Luxray, but they can go out on their own terms. They really need to think about how they want to approach this, because Luxray still can't do any damage to it. They could just end their turn. And instead they're going to go for the retreat. They're trying to win this. They do not want to give up yet. They're going for the tail whip. If the tail whip is a heads flip coin, it will prevent any damage done, and it is a heads from Luxray to the Vulpix here. So this is fantastic. This buys the Blazers a bit of time. It also buys the Wonders a bit of time though. They can try and get this Luxray set up. There is a second Volkner somewhere in that deck, and they need to get it as quickly as they can to get 2 more energy onto the Luxray. The Pokemon Center Lady being pulled for the Cinnabar Blazes. They immediately use that on the Magmortar, but it currently has no energy on it, so they would have to set it back up. They don't have a Ninetales in hand just yet. Both of them are in the bench, and we saw one of them earlier on as they continue with this Tail Whip. This time they get a Tails. The Wonders need to pull the Volkner. This is the opportunity. They get the Pachirisu instead. Now the Pachirisu can generate energy, remember, and it can do damage to the Vulpix, but they are just worried about setting up the Luxray one more turn, and they will get that third energy onto the Luxray. But the Blazers, they pull the Ninetales just in time. Ninetales requires 1 more energy for this flamethrower, but it does the perfect 90 damage. It is going to take Luxray off the board regardless of the Rocky Helmet damage. The Blazers are going to take game 2, and we are going to a game 3 decider. And this game 3 is going to determine who wins the series between the Levincia Wonders and the Cinnabar Blazes. This time though, it will be the Wonders going first with their Volt Tackle deck up against the Flint Lockwood deck of the Cinnabar Blazes. Pormo going into the active spot for the Wonders. There's a Sizzlipede going into the active spot for the Blazers with the Heat Rotom on the bench, and we can see the Center Scorch in hand for the Blazers. They've also got the Cyrus and the Team Rocket Grunts. And we see the Pormo. Not to be confused with Porme, very similar names, and the Raichu in hand, but it's also now the Manectric in hand for the Wonders as they play their Pokeball. And they are going to get a Pikachu out of their deck, which is fantastic for that Raichu, moving the Pikachu onto the bench, and they do put that Rocky Helmet onto the Porme, trying to make the Blazers hesitant to start going on the offensive. And the Blazers do pull the Macargo, but they don't have a Slugma yet, so they get a first energy onto the Sizzlipede. They can go for the Gnaw, and they immediately go for it. They do not care about the 10 damage the 20 recoil damage from this Rocky Helmet that the Wonders have set up as a second Pormo is being pulled for the Wonders. Now, if they evolve this Porme into the Pormo, it will require a second energy. Otherwise, they can just do 20 damage with this punch. They need to weigh up their options. Now the punch of the Pormo also does 40 damage, but it does require 2 energy, so the Wonders are weighing up. Do they want to go on the offensive, or do they want to wait and potentially get the Pormot in the next turn? Such similar names between that evolutionary line, but it is the Raichu also coming online for the Pikachu, and they do end their turn, sending it back over to the Blazers, who pull the X speed. Now Heat Rotom can't go on the offensive yet. It does require 3 energy to do so. But they are going to play the X-Speed because they know that the Heat Rotom can outlast a hit from this Pormo. And they are going with that retreat now after Sizzlipede has already taken that 20 damage. And the Center Scorch is going to come online for the Blazers as they play the Team Rocket Grunt. They want to try and get this single energy off of the Wonders, and they get their heads. Pormo loses the only energy that is on it, and this is great for the Blazers here as the Wonders are going to pull their Iono, potentially allowing both sides to shuffle their hands. They would both get 2 cards back, as that's how many they would have remaining after the Iono is played, but the Wonders do get another energy back onto the Pormo. But this has bought the Blazers some time. They do pull the potion. They can actually use that now on the Center Scorch, which is immediately what they go for. Center Scorch does require 4 energy, whereas Heat Rotom only requires 2, which allows it to go for this Heat Breath that is going to do 60 damage thanks to that coin flip doing the additional 30, and Pulmo is brought down to 10 health, but it does do that 20 damage recoil. And the Wonders do pull their Giant Cape. They can't put that on the Pulmo now. They can put it onto the Raichu, but instead they are going to go for the Iono. They want to keep that Giant Cape in hand so they can send it away, boosting their chances of pulling the Pulmot. They get the Electric, they get the Manectric, they get the Pulmi. They do not get the Pulmot in hand. That is massive. That is going to keep this Heat Rotom safe, but it will still allow this Pulmi to do 40 damage, bringing that Heat Rotom down to 20 health. That Electric that is online only requires 1 energy, and so does the Manectric that is in hand for them, as well as the Cyrus is now pulled for the Blazes, who also have a Dawn and a Pokeball. They're going to get a second energy on to this Center Scorch, and Center Scorch can do 130 damage, or is it 120? Maybe we'll find out, but the Pokeball is also in hand for the Cinnabar Blazes, and they are going to play that as well. They do get the Slugma. They've no longer got a Makago in hand, but they are immediately going to move that on to the bench. Again, that Dawn can allow for an energy to be moved from a benched Pokemon to the active Pokemon, as well as the Blazes are thinking about how they want to approach this. And there it is, 130 damage. I was correct, thank you. As the Blazers taking their time, they don't want to rush this. There's still not been a single point taken here in Game 3 between these two sides. And they don't want to lose the Rotom, so they're going to retreat that and immediately move the energy up onto the Center Scorch, because Rotom, if it had taken Pulmo out, the Rocky Helmet would have taken it out in return. The Giant Cape being pulled for the Levincia Wonders, and it is the Manectric being moved onto the bench, getting its one and only required energy. And they are going to retreat the Pulmo. Nobody wants to drop a point, but the Flash can prevent the Center Scorch from doing damage to the Manectric. They will require a coin flip to determine, but first that 40 damage. If Center Scorch flips a heads, it will be able to get off an attack. If it's a tails, it will do nothing. But first they play the Professor's Research, they get the second Slugma, they get their own Rocky Helmet. They are going to put that onto the Center Scorch. This will be interesting to see how this coin flip goes. This one coin flip could determine the whole game, and they're having a look at that condition as well of the coin flip. They haven't moved an energy yet, but here we go. It is going to be that fourth energy coming onto the Center Scorch, and this is the moment that will determine potentially how this Game 3 goes overall, and it's the first point at stake, and they flip the heads. They wipe this Manectric off the board, 130 damage. That is massive for the Blazers. They did have to discard an energy, but it's very easy for them to get that back onto the Center Scorch. As the Pulmo is moved back into the active spot for the Wonders, they pull the Pokeball. They still need the Pulmot, as if Raichu doesn't have a second energy on. Electric is pulled. Thanks to that Pokeball, they are going to move that onto the bench. They may be hoping that they can get a second Manectric in hand as well, but here we go, the punch from the Pulmo. It is going to get the 20 recoil damage. They may have just rushed that move, because the Rocky Helmet is going to take Pulmo out of this match. That is now 2 points for the Blazers. It's 1 point for... No, sorry, it's not even 1 point for the Wonders. I went to speak too soon, but this is great for the Blazers. The Wonders have just made a huge error. They immediately get the energy onto the Center Scorch, and the Fire Blast, 130 damage. And in the end, the Blazers run away with Game 3 to lock up this series. And a huge part of that came down to a crucial error by the Wonders, as they are left in 7th place, and next round they are going up against the Turfield Ebonies, whereas for the Blazers they move up into 4th, and next round they are going up against the Kitakami Rogues. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below who you thought the best card was, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.